So this week, Terry Lynn Land had love him or hate him Republican booster, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie come into town for a fundraiser. Democrats protested the event. There have been ads on TV digging at both Land and opponent Gary Peters from money-laden super PACs. And a new poll out this week swaps numbers slightly in favor of Peters, but still within the margin of error. We will cover all the election bases tonight, but we'll start there with our contributors, Nolan Finley, the editorial page editor of the Detroit News, and Stephen Henderson, the editorial page editor of the Detroit Free Press. Gentlemen, a little election 2014 conversation, right?
Did you say we were having cocktails?
You know what? We should.
That's all he heard. After that, he's zoned out.
Is that when you perked up? Is that where I got your attention?
I thought that would make a better show.
All right. Well, let's start off with the Senate race. Chris Christie was in town this week. Did that help Terry Lynn Land?
Well, it helped for the reason he was brought in. She raised a bunch of money. He's still a very popular figure in the party and has the ability to raise a lot of money. I mean, Democrats tried to manufacture a controversy here. They're going to do that with their little games throughout this campaign. But you know, I say she raised a lot of money out of that appearance.
They don't have a legitimate beef that they could tie her to someone in the Republican Party whose star is not as bright as it used to be and is stuck with controversy right now?
Did you see him at CPAC? His star is pretty bright still in the party.
In the party?
Yeah.
Which tells you something, right?
And that's where she's running right now.
I can tell Stephen Henderson just has a lot to say about the Republicans today.
It tells you something that this is their guy, right? This is the guy they're trotting out all across the country, a guy who closed a bridge and killed an old lady out of political revenge. You know,
well, Chris Christie didn't technically kill an old. I mean, well, not himself.
We're just gonna, the bridge, but the bridge being closed, you know, caused somebody's death, and you know he's busy covering for that, and you know, saying one thing, and emails come out saying another. This is a tainted political figure, no question, nationwide.
Democrats and their lapdogs in the media have been trying to paint him as such, and it hasn't stopped.
Well,
he still goes out in places like Michigan,
how is it trying to taint him?
Popular.
They did close the bridge out of political revenge. I mean, there's no question about that.
Someone on his staff did.
Someone on his staff did. So he's not accountable for that?
Well, I think he's been accountable. He's explained his role in it. He's fired the appropriate people. Who got fired for Benghazi?
All right, well, okay, now we're starting to dig.
It reflects the unequal treatment of controversies involving Republicans.
Well, there was a report on Benghazi that proved that there was nothing more that could have been done from the White House.
All right, hang on. I'm going to pull you guys. I'm going to pull you guys back from the weeds, and I'm going to pull you back into Michigan and talk about the Senate race, because obviously a lot of the large national issues will be playing a role here. But we just had a new poll out this week. Lammers did a poll that slightly switched the numbers because Terry Lynn Land has been up in a number of recent polls. But now you saw a little bit of a flip, 39% to 36% for Gary Peters, still within the margin of error. Yeah. What do you account for that? And again, you can read polls in a lot of different ways.
I don't know what it accounts for. This early, it's hard to tell why people are saying one thing or another. I mean, the ads are what is driving the conversation at this point, because that's all we have. You know, we've got ads on both sides running, from paid for by people outside the state. You're not hearing that much from these candidates. Now, I would argue that you're hearing much less from Terry Lynn Land than you have from Gary Peters.
How so? Where's Gary Peters?
Gary Peters is doing house parties all over the place.
She's doing them all over the state.
He's doing public appearances in his district, which, you know, he's served for a while. The strategy for the Republicans will be to keep Terry Lynn Land away from a lot of scrutiny.
Why? Now, hang on. Why do you think Republicans should be keeping her away? Why do you say that,
Because as much as I like Terry Lynn Land, and I do, I think she's actually one of the more appealing Republicans we have here in the state. She looks much better from a distance than she does up close. When you talk to her and try to talk to her in depth about a lot of policy issues, you see that there's some shallowness there. You don't want to get her into a policy debate, a deep policy debate with either voters or Gary Peters. So the strategy is going to be to hide her some.
That's absurd. This is a woman who ran who ran and won twice statewide and won. Democrats are scared.
sure.
Democrats are scared to death of her. They thought they had a candidate who was going to run away with this race. She's kept it dead even at this point, and it's worth noting.
She's doing well.
Gary Peters lost his only statewide race, so she's experienced with she's got tremendous appeal to the grassroots voters in Michigan. Voters like her. She's very appealing on a personal level. But at this point, you're looking at polls that basically are measuring partisanship.
And you have 21% of people who are undecided still.
Democrats are supporting Peters. Republicans are supporting Land and the leaning. I don't think you've seen much in the way of the moving the middle. I don't think these ads have moved these numbers at all yet.
Real quick, Stephen, let me ask you this. What are some of the issues that are going to take center stage for these two candidates? There has been a lot of talk about right to life and involving these candidates in the conversation about the insurance rider for abortions when neither one of them in the U.S. Senate position had nothing to do with what the State House and Senate decided, but they're being brought into this conversation.
Well, because it's a hot issue. I mean, it's a very unpopular issue among not just Democrats but independent voters here in Michigan, and that's one of the Achilles heels that the GOP has, is these social issues where lots of voters who might support their candidates for economic reasons get off their bandwagon when they get questions of religion, questions of freedom to choose, questions of gay marriage, tolerance, those kinds of things. The Republican Party has the biggest problems with those issues. So of course, that's where you come and attack. I think in a race that's a statewide race, especially.
This race is going to be about Obamacare. Democrats are trying
Republicans,
to distract.
that's what they need.
Democrats are going to try to distract and throw every other issue out there. This election is about Obamacare, and how well Gary Peters is able to defend himself will determine how well he does. People are mad about this. They're going to get angrier as the year rolls out, because more people this fall are going to lose policies, going to see big spikes in their premiums. He's got to answer for this. And so far, he's been all over the place and sort of defending his support for Obama.
But here's what he hasn't done.
It's a powerful issue.
What hasn't he done, Stephen?
He hasn't recruited people to tell stories that aren't quite true all over television about what's happened with.
And you're referring to the ad.
I mean, that's just flat out untrue.
That's a spectacular example of the lengths to which Republicans have taken what is a legitimate issue, which is how do we get more people covered, how do we keep costs down, and made it into a carnival with outlandish accusations that aren't true.
What was it, Steve?
Well, this woman said that her premium, that she was going to pay more. Turns out she's paying $1,000 less.
And her premium, her deductibles and her co-pays go up enormously. And that's the big lie. Another big lie of Obamacare is you want to compare premiums. Premiums mean nothing if you're paying $10,000 and $12,000 out of pocket for your health care.
If that was the point,
was maligned.
If that was the point, then that's what the commercial should have said.
It absolutely.
And the fact that she won't come out and defend it.
That's going to backfire on Gary Peters. She certainly did.
She won't come out and talk to anybody.
She wrote a letter we ran the other day.
She wrote a letter full of. I got the same letter and didn't print it because it was full of more misrepresentations.
It's her story. And
it was full of falsehoods.
And her story is the story many Americans are experiencing, in that their co-pays and their deductibles are making
up. Some people are paying
unaffordable.
Some people are paying more.
Aren't going to be able to go to the doctor. We learned this week that cancer patients aren't going to have access to the best hospitals.
Here's
Steve,
the other.
This thing's a mess.
Here's the other side of that. I'm somebody who admits that the law is far from perfect, and we've got to fix it.
It's hurting people.
We need Terry Lynn Land to come out and say, how would she fix it? What would she do?
And she certainly has done that.
She has not been anywhere with that.
And Gary Peters has not said how he'd fix it either.
Absolutely.
But when you want to talk about the lies,
we're going to move down the ticket here for a minute. Finish your Obamacare, Nolan.
7 million people have signed up and enrolled in Obamacare. That's an absolute lie right there, Steve.
No, it's not.
These people have not paid their first premium
yet.
But
they've signed up.
Well, they've signed up.
They signed up.
They've submitted applications. They haven't decided. They haven't decided that they're going to be on the insurance.
All right,
I'm going to count them until they pay.
No, and I'm going to bring it back because I want to continue to talk about elections here in Michigan. I want to move down to the line to the governor's election, and we saw again another poll out this week. And again, it was a Lambert poll that made it a tighter race than I think people were thinking it was going to be. It looked at like 42%, 39%.
Yeah.
Still for the governor. If you're in the governor's office right now, are you kind of scratching your head with these numbers?
No, I mean, he's got a race, and it's good. It's a good thing he does, because it'll keep him focused, and it'll keep some of the money perhaps from going to other races in terms of his opponents. But yeah, there was a similar poll out last week, gave his approval rating at 52%. I don't think he's in trouble in this race.
I think he could be. I think
Can Mark Schauer win?
Here's how he could win. You know, the Democratic advantage in this state is you know, indisputable. There are more registered Democrats. There are more people who identify themselves as Democrats than Republicans. Rick Snyder won the election in 2010 by convincing a lot of those people to sit home. I mean, we went down 600,000 voters between 2006 and 2010, the two off-year elections. Most of those voters were Democrats and independents who were not excited about Verge Bonero. Some of them were actually excited about Rick Snyder. What Mark Schauer has to do is get more of those people to the polls and voting for him. If he does that, he wins the election. It's just that's just a math issue more than anything.
I don't know where all these Democrats have been the last 10 years. The only state,
not 10 years. 2012. 2012, they set records.
The only state office they've won in the last 10 years was Granholm's
because
second
of the
term.
the off-year elections.
So this is now
have held every major state office, in
and this is now
more than a decade.
strategy that you have to look at with now the state house and the Senate races.
Twice.
Hang on,
well,
hang on.
You're right. 2 elections, but they certainly.
You guys are in a mood today. Number one, okay. So hang on. Hang on, Nolan.
They haven't been able to win.
Hang on.
The Attorney General,
they held the majority of the.
I want to talk, gentlemen.
Gentlemen,
I want to talk about State House and Senate race. Man, what was in the Cheerios today? And how all of this factors into turning out the vote, the possibility of the Democrats maybe getting control in the House, and what has to happen now.
I think it's a long shot if you're a Democrat. Number one, this is a Republican map that was drawn for the first time in Michigan history with an extreme prejudice toward not just party but safety in terms of incumbency. I mean, these maps, you know, a third grade child with crayons could have come up with a more logical way, a more symmetrical map, particularly in the state house. So the advantage there has been built in against the Democratic Party. We got to live with that map for another 10 years. We'll see if the demographic shifts catch up, but I don't think you'll see that happen in 2014.
Well, if all these closet Democrats show up and vote, Steve, the map.
Not closets. They did. Well, they sure did in 2012. They sure did in 2012.